Bryce Mead, and I am the founder and the head roaster of Small Beans Coffee Co. This video is probably a year overdue. I have been thinking about this, and typically I don't get stage fright, public speaking and talking, speaking to people, but there's something intimidating about, getting behind a camera and, putting yourself out there, because there's so much media. We're just constantly bombarded from all sides. So this is my story, if you will, about how I came up with the idea to have a coffee roastery, and also just a little bit about my passion for coffee and how that started. I started roasting coffee in 2007 in the garage on a popcorn popper, and had absolutely no clue about anything, the chemical reactions happening. I just knew that if I ordered some coffee from Sweet Maria's, it showed up, I could dump it in the popcorn popper, and in 5 to 6 minutes I could wind up with a oily roast that somehow I thought was good. Thinking back, it probably was terrible, because I still remember how oily the beans were, so it was probably well past second crack. But that was my foray, into coffee roasting. And it was kind of funny, I did that for a very long time, and then I got an iRoast 2, found it on eBay. It was actually I think I got it in 2008 or 2009. It was fairly new, lightly used, and roasted on that for quite a while. I had a fresh roast SR800 a couple years after that. I had a Gene Cafe, so I kind of, worked my way up, and then I took a break from roasting, actually, and didn't touch roasting for quite a few years. Then in 2018, I was kind of deep into exploring my passion for coffee again, and had this idea of, why not, have a roastery and share, the passion for coffee. That kind of got put on the back burner. Life had some other plans for me, but about 2 years ago, I got back into roasting heavily, and I was like, okay, this is it. I'm really gonna, pursue this. And so I started taking SCA classes, because I'm big on knowledge and like understanding the how and why. So reading articles and white papers and watching videos on YouTube and whatever I could get my hands on, just to broaden my knowledge base, so that when I am selling coffee and talking to people, I'm a credible source. I can back up what I say, and I'm not just making it up as I go. And I've had a lot of fun taking the SCA classes. I've gone through the professional level in several areas. I'm almost done with my roasting diploma, yay. And I don't know how much further I'm going to go, with the courses and whatnot, but I do have a really big passion for educating people. So back a couple years when I got into roasting heavily again and started, thinking about, how I was going to execute this idea, I have a business mind. I have a business Bachelor of Science in Business Business Administration and Marketing. And so I'm always, thinking about like, how can I make this efficient? How can I, make this cost effective? And, you got to spend money to make money. So like, where's the balance? Like, how do I navigate this? So I just really started taking my time to get all my ducks in a row, website, and just really be intentional and slow. And, instead of just ordering a bunch of coffee and roasting it and, trying to sell it to people, I was like, I'm going to pump the brakes and, invest the time in the education and make sure I really understand, what it is that I'm doing. So, credibility is important to me. And, I'm a firm believer in, if you believe something, you better be able to back it up with facts. And I think that applies to business. If you're in business and doing something and you're passionate about it, you should study it, you should understand it, you should be knowledgeable about it. And that gives you credibility, in the community and with your customers. So, and that's honestly the best marketing that you can have, because that, we know word of mouth is a huge marketing tool. And so, if you're credible as well and people trust you and you have that trust relationship and you deliver on your product, that makes all the difference. So I then got a bullet, and I knew very little about roasting on electric machines. That was a very steep learning curve. And I finally feel like I've wrangled the bullet and I can get it to do what I want it to do and get my roasts, on the roadmap to where I want them to finish and end and taste and everything. So that's been fun. It's kind of like roasting's kind of like the Wild West. You have this plan, for this coffee and how you think it should taste and what best represents its characteristics. And then, the fun part is the trial and error of, getting there and, tweaking it and fine tuning it to, really make it shine. So I spent a lot of time learning the bullet, the SEA classes. I've gone to Roast Summit. I've gone to SEA Expo. Just anything and everything to learn and observe. I'm kind of more of a quiet observer. Watching other people, like what they're doing, listening to what people are talking about at these things. And so sometimes you learn really well by asking a lot of questions, and then sometimes you can learn really well by just observing, reading, and then also drinking coffee wherever I go, wherever I travel, wherever my partner and I travel, whether it's for work, pleasure, whatever. We're always buying coffee, bags of coffee. We're tasting it, cupping it, because I think it's really important to know what's out there, and not necessarily knowing your competition. That's obviously important, but I don't really look at other roasters as competition, because everybody has got something special to offer. So, what is the service, or what is the value that you are selling with your product? That's how I approach things. And you might have, 4 or 5 different coffees, and there is a subset of people that just do not like your coffee. They don't like light roast. They don't like medium roast. They only want the dark, oily, and that's okay. You're not going to please everybody. And that's okay. So I think learning to not take those things personally, and then just focus on the people that do love your product. That's where you're really going to find success. And that's my motto. I'm also really passionate about educating people. And one thing I've noticed in the specialty coffee industry, and this is just my opinion, there are various cliques within the specialty coffee arena, and it's not always super approachable for the average consumer, or people that don't know a lot, or they don't they just haven't had the time and opportunity to experience it, and it can be kind of overwhelming, and there can be kind of this, I think, chip on the shoulder associated with it. And so the other part of my business is trying to make this accessible to everybody, and that's part of why I wanted to start this channel, and I'm calling it the Small Beans Coffee Corner. Obviously I'm sitting in a corner, call it corny if you will, but just to educate and make people aware. And in the Tampa area, I'm going to be doing some classes for the community about, not only just roasting, but also cupping, sensory, the crop to cup journey, and, just really showing people, this is why you should support the specialty coffee industry, not because it, just tastes good or, because everybody else is, but we're supporting like all these small farms and the farmers and their families and their staff that they have to pay. And so I try to create value for people in that regard. And we all know like stories sell, right? So every coffee has a story. And at Small Beans, like we try to source direct from the farm when we can, putting the money directly into the farmer's pocket. That's to me, that's huge. Plus it's a relationship business, and much like in my professional day-to-day career of insurance, insurance is very much a relationship business as well. So it's really important to have and maintain those connections, because people are important, right? And it's so easy for things to get lost in translation via email, text messages, phone calls, and so just having that face-to-face interaction is really important. I think it's important to take origin trips and go visit these places and see, and those are all things that we have done, and it makes me proud to be able to communicate that to my customers, and so they know where their coffee's coming from, and that when they purchase a bag of coffee or whatever, it's they can see where the dollar is ending, so to speak, instead of it just getting lost in some giant corporation. So that's a big thing that we're focusing on, and we'll continue to focus on. And the other piece of this channel is there's so much information out there, and it can be incredibly overwhelming. When I started my coffee journey, it was super overwhelming. There's so many videos, there's so many blogs, there's, and then you type in, review on this pour over device or that brewing machine or, that espresso machine, whatever. And then you're just, bombarded, and like the titles can be confusing. And so I just wanted to have a really simple place, where it's easy to understand. We have some product reviews that are short and follow the same format every single time, because let's face it, like we're all busy, and it's very easy to get stuck on a YouTube rabbit hole, right? So being able to tell people that want to get into specialty coffee, like yes, you can do this without spending a lot of money. Like here's my top 3 products that I would recommend, that'll get you started with a pour over setup for less than $100. Because let's face it, gear's expensive. There's always something new coming out, but you don't have to have the Cadillac of everything. You can if you want, of course, but it's not necessary. And I think that can be a barrier to entry for some people. I talk to a lot of customers at farmers markets. We're doing farmers markets almost every weekend, and the biggest thing is a grinder. Like a lot of people don't even have a grinder. It doesn't mean that they won't get one. Most people are open to getting one. They're just like, I don't know, how much do I spend? Like, which one's the best one? What do you recommend? And so I've been able to talk to some of these folks like on a repeat basis, and, they've slowly introduced things into their coffee setup at home. And then they're transforming the coffee that, they've been brewing, and they're going from this commodity coffee that they're buying pre-ground at the grocery store, and then venturing into specialty coffee. And all the time at these markets we have samples, and I get people that will taste the coffee and they're like, I didn't even know coffee could taste this way. I'm just so used to dumping cream and sugar because it's bitter and black and oily and whatever other flavors you can think of, commodity coffee. So it's been really fun and rewarding, to kind of see like when people get excited about something and then they want to explore it more. So that, something that we'll, continue to focus on, and not just, the coffee roasting aspect and the specialty coffee and, the caliber. Those are all important things, but, I want anybody and everybody that has an interest to be able to enjoy it and to feel like, welcome in the specialty coffee community, and that regardless of their setup or how expensive their equipment is, or whatever, like they can brew a cup of coffee that's delicious and suits their taste, and enjoy it. So, well, I don't want to go for too long on this because we're at over 15 minutes now, but just wanted to kind of introduce myself, and I hope everybody will enjoy the channel. We'll have some roast alongs. I would like to do a bullet tutorial with my my favorite settings and what I found works really well. We're gonna have the reviews, product reviews. We'll have some origin trip footage. I'm getting ready to head to Japan and Vietnam in a couple weeks, and we'll be visiting some coffee farms in Vietnam. So thank you in advance just for all the support, and if you can like and click subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. And also feel free to check out our website. It's smallbeanscoffeeco.com, and that is beans with a Z. So until next time, see y'all.